Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? How many folks in the room have taken a cruise vacation before? Cruise vacation. Doesn't have to be with Royal Caribbean. You can be honest. There? Good? Well, thank you very much for that. Both of us have been with Royal about 15 years. I'm the Director of IT Operations, run the network, satellite communications, phone systems, ship and shore. And Madeline is managing the satellite communications and wide area network for our company. So we thought we'd just start with a brief video. If you could cue the video, please. Quantum of the Seas, and the Quantum comes out this fall. It's actually going to be in Southampton here the 31st of October through the 2nd for inaugural cruise, and then it's going to go to New York and do about 8 months of cruising there, and then actually relocate to China. China's a huge growth market for us. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we've gone through an evolution in our connectivity to the ships. Traditional connectivity just wasn't working for us. The contended satellite providers that were out there, the partners that we had, couldn't keep up with our demand. The Quantum, which you just saw, has 3,800 guests and about 2,000 crews, so we have 6,000 people on that ship, third largest ship in the world. We also have the first 2 largest ships with about 8,000 people each, Oasis and Allure of the Seas. Quickly, we have multiple brands. Royal Caribbean is the most well-known brand, 22 ships. It's a global brand. Celebrity Cruises, 11 ships, higher-end premium brand. Azamara Club Cruises has a couple of ships that are very small and go to unique places, and it's more about the destination. Then we have 3 other small country-specific brands. We're also working on some additional potentially brands here. So as far as cruise companies, we're a $7 billion company, second largest cruise line. We have the largest cruise brand in Royal Caribbean, however. And in that brand and across our company, we're always pushing the innovation button. So if we can't find it on the market, our job is to go out and make it happen. And the connectivity is one of the things that we had to do. So over the last few years, as everyone knows, I'm sure, social media, phones, tablet devices, when you're on vacation, there's different segments of people, but everyone wants to have the option to stay connected. And if you have 4 or 5 megabits for a cruise ship with 6,000 people, it's just not possible to use everything that most of the folks are using every day. This is a Wow-O-Meter that we have on our website. Basically, folks send in pictures and updates from their vacation experience, and then we have a board that's it's on the website, and it's on some of the ships that you can see what's called the Wow-O-Meter of different wow moments across the brand. We're in the hospitality business, so very specialized business in the cruise, but in the broader hospitality market, hotels like this are also in that. Folks are traveling with many more devices. We see people with 3 devices, 5 devices. We're expecting that to continue to grow. The younger generations want to stay connected all the time. So, you know, even if you want to go on holiday and not be connected, you want to know that you can. You know, traditionally I would ask, if I said to everyone in the room, you have to turn off your cell phone for the next 2 hours, you know, there would probably be a panic, right? You know, if you go on a ship, people think that you have to turn off all of your electronic devices. And some people love that, but there's a lot of people that don't love that. What happens, you know, if you forget to pay your power bill or whatever it is? You know, you want to have the ability to stay connected, and you don't want to pay a ridiculous price, and you don't want it to be so slow that you can't use it. Consumers don't understand in our business why connectivity, except for maybe, you know, certain hotels, why is it so different when we go out to sea? I don't really want to understand this whole satellite thing, but it's definitely a different model, and the majority of our customers do not appreciate the expense and the complication that goes into that. So about 60% of folks that are staying in hotels are using, you know, some type of connectivity when they're staying. They'll pay for the internet packages. They're expecting that on our ships as well. So just to go through, for those that don't know, you know, we had maybe 10 to 15%. You know, a ship is basically a floating little city, you know, so everything from obviously the entertainment, all of the amenities that you want for, you know, eating and drinking. You know, people expect, you know, very fast and great service, you know, specific to this presentation around connectivity. They want, you know, land-like speeds, and, you know, they want something reasonably priced compared to what you see on land. So, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about why we did what we did, which was, you know, we went from, you know, contended network to a private network with a lot more capacity, and we have, you know, plans in motion now with O3B and others to take that to the next level. So in 2011, 2012, you know, we had about, you know, with all of our ships, roughly 40 megs of global capacity, and, you know, we decided it wasn't enough. Your revenue was down, people were very upset. You know, we had a lot of things to try to make it better, you know, that all the different tools and things that you use to try to make it look and trick like you have more, but it just, we were out of gas. So we, you know, put out an RFP and went through a process to say, you know, we want to do something different. You know, we can't have, at that point, you know, modems that only are able to transmit at 4 megs. You know, that we needed something else. So we partnered with Harris Caprock, and we have about eight times more capacity, 8 to 10 times. We've grown it since then. You know, fully private SCPC network, Comtech infrastructure, our own megahertz that we move around as we want to. So kind of definitely flip the model on its head from traditional type offerings. You know, and since then we've had, you know, favorable feedback. You know, revenue is also up. You know, those are obviously very good things. In addition to that, and I'll talk about this just for another minute, but, you know, we deployed a new software package to access the internet on the ships and Wi-Fi across the ships. The Quantum of the Seas has about 1,000 access points. So if you're deploying access points in a metal box, you can imagine it's very difficult. You know, so we have some of the most complicated Wi-Fi installations. You know, we know anywhere in the world. So now we're going to show a brief video about our migration, you know, what it took to go, you know, which we probably didn't really understand when we did it, but, you know, from another provider to the new provider. So can we cue the second? Thank you for allowing us to play that. We're very proud of our accomplishments. Madeline's going to talk for a couple of minutes about some of the best practices of the migration that we went through.
It took a little bit of 2 years to complete this, and we are very proud of what we did and the time frames that we did it. I started putting this together as a lessons learned, but it's more like the recommendation. I don't know how many customers are here today. I think that is more the operators, but we have to complete the design configuration, and it needs to be approved by all parties. So the customer, the provider, everybody has to be on the same page to make sure that we deliver to our expectations. We completed a site survey on every vessel to identify power requirements, cable requirements, collect as much information as we needed to make sure that when we come to do the installation, everything was in place. We went and met with everybody. We met with the executive committee on the ship. We met with the crane operator, with port agents. We learned about ports that you can never put a crane on, like New Orleans. The deployment team has to be familiar with the Royal Caribbean, with the cruise industry. We really take pride in what we do. So having these engineers and lead technicians operate on our vessels, they really need to understand that our priority is our guests and their experience on board. We set up the testing lab. We performed the user acceptance test, where we went through a set of standards and key points that we will need to make sure that we deploy to that. Shipping, oh my God, shipping was so important because shipping overseas, it can be very tricky. We need to ship with enough times. We need to put in there enough spare parts, never enough. You can put more and more and more. It got to the point that we have a whole kit, a whole antenna, everything ready to go in case we have a problem with any of the equipment that was designated to the ship. The deployment team must be self-sufficient. When you are on a ship and you don't have communications, you cannot expect to make a phone call from a data center. You really need to know what you are doing and be self-sufficient. We have a few issues with fiber, so we decided that we need to have a fiber expert on board to be able to resolve any of those problems at that specific location. Once we completed the installation, we let the system run for a couple of weeks before we sign off to make sure that everything was going right. Training and documentation, very important. It's very important when we complete a deployment that we are putting a new system on board, that all the people on the ship that are responsible for the system understand what they need to do. Once again, when you have problems with your satellite communication system, you need to be self-sufficient. You need to be able to do your basic troubleshooting before you are able to make that call.
Thank you, Madeline. She's really the reason this happened, so congratulations again. So we went through this huge project, spent millions of dollars. We were a little bit happier, but at the end of the day, we're still not happy as a company. This is not what we wanted, really. It's still geo service. It's still slower than we want. We're making more money, but this isn't the end of the story. So we were asked, all right, people, let's figure out how we can evolve this and make this into a multi-part strategy. It's not just about one way of communicating. So the guests continue to demand more at a lower cost. They don't want to pay 85 cents a minute for connectivity or 75 cents a minute on a cruise ship. Think that a lot of those think that that's a ridiculous price. They expect reasonably, performing solutions like they're in a regular hotel over satellite, and they don't really care all the things that have to go into making that happen. They don't want roaming. They definitely want mobile, and they're doing a lot of video and Skype. So especially the younger folks that are coming along with these groups, they want to stay connected to their friends. They're Skyping every week, every few days. So they want to continue to do that on our ships. so the first part of our strategy was deploying a new private network solution, and the next part of our strategy was let's go out and partner with O3B, MEO orbit satellite solution. And what I haven't heard talked about a lot the last couple of days is throughput is great, but latency is also very important. We've done lots of tests. There's definitely a huge story for you have to have lower latency if you want better performance. Obviously, it depends on the application. If you're on cellular backhaul, maybe it doesn't matter in some cases. But if you're serving web pages, latency is super important. So just to give you an idea, Oasis is the largest ship in the world. It had 4 megs of capacity for 8,000 people. We upgraded to regional pools in the Caribbean. We have a 100 meg pool in the Caribbean. Now we have over 10 megs of KU and C-band capacity, bursting up to maybe 20, 25, 30 megs. O3B gives us at least 300 megs with about 140 milliseconds. We've had O3B on Oasis since the beginning of the year. We installed it in mid-January, and we're going to be going live with 3 ships by the end of this year with O3B. Quantum is the most publicly visible. Basically, the ship is enabled, based on the KA service of O3B. Can we cue the next video, please?
5, 4, 3, 2, unité, podium. Décollage, lift-off, c'est parti.
What O3B promises to achieve with us is that the full use of the bandwidth, video streaming, sharing things on Facebook and similar technologies will become available.
That's a real revolution as far as the cruise industry is concerned. They'll be able to bring their own devices, they'll be able to have access to very rich content, they'll be able to stream and do all of the things that you expect to be able to do everywhere else in your life here on board ship.
I think that Royal Caribbean is distinguished in the industry as being the most innovative brand by far. And O3B is innovation and is trying to connect all the other 3 billion people to the internet. And what we want to do is we want to be part of that.
The O3B connectivity is not a broad signal that is sent out like a geostationary orbit satellite, a normal satellite. It is a beam. And that beam is focused on a particular area, a very specific diameter. And as the ship moves through the water, they actually point the beam at the ship as the satellite is going overhead. This is revolutionary. It is hundreds of times more capacity and 8 or 9 times reduced in latency. Latency is how long it takes for a signal to go from the ship to the satellite, back down to the ground station, and then does that trip again to get back to the ship.
They will have essentially the same connectivity that they would have today in their house, in a hotel, or anywhere they would travel inland. For me, it's like we have the ability to connect a fiber optic cable to the back of the ship and take it with us around the Caribbean.
So we know that O3B is great. It meets our needs in certain markets. We also know that O3B is not going to serve everything for us. So we have a lot of traditional GEOS capacity. O3B is great, spot beams in certain markets, Caribbean, part of Europe, parts of China. In our situation, there's other opportunities, but we still have a lot of GEO capacity on KU and C, and that's going to continue for a long time. In our case, basically, the MEO satellites with the latency reduction is very important. And working with O3B, we actually customized the solution. We just didn't go down to the shop and pull the equipment off the shelf. We basically had to create our own system from brand new antennas to brand new infrastructure to setting up test labs to testing things on the ship. So this is definitely an engineering project, and we're very excited about it. I'm going to briefly go through a couple more slides and then we'll wrap up. So in addition to satellite capacity, in our strategy, there's terrestrial wireless, there's different names for this, WiMAX, you could have microwave connectivity, cellular. goal at the end of the day is to bring down our blended cost of bandwidth. So we have, so many megahertz, so many megabits. Our target is to say over time, solution to us is, adding in things like, terrestrial wireless, adding in things like cellular, adding in O3B. We're expecting with high throughput satellites the connectivity costs to go down, which is something we have, a very intent focus on because the pricing is so much higher than traditional service in our industry. And we've been testing and starting to deploy more of this terrestrial infrastructure. I talked about Wi-Fi before. So let me just go through a couple of these. So, as an end user of satellite capacity and bandwidth, we see the market is very fragmented, and there isn't, folks that can provide everything we need. So, we're, in the position basically we have to go out and find, this solution, this solution, this solution. There's not enough working together partnership across the board. It's starting to get better. We've worked with Harris a lot on that, but we'd like to see more of that coming out. So innovation opportunities, I'll mention a couple here. Earth stations, I run data centers for Royal. We have huge data centers outside of DC and in Florida. We have partnerships with, Facebooks, the Googles, all those folks. A lot of the Earth stations don't have, the right access to the internet and don't have the infrastructure to make things super fast to work in the web world, right? So that's an opportunity for the group potentially. We want, antenna technology to evolve. The tri-band antennas in our case are very important, CKU, KA, and new wireless technologies. So this is basically, to summarize, our innovation, where we're at right now. We obviously have plans for the next 3 to 5 years of things that we're going to do to make this even better. And we're continuing to push the envelope because, our growth of data is about 20 to 40% a year, and we don't expect that to do anything but continue to go up, especially over the next 10 years. Just an interesting tidbit, our LinkedIn page, this is our CEO, Adam Goldstein, COO, and he actually put in there, it's hard to read, that bandwidth, unheard of bandwidth and connectivity on board our ships, is part of the profile of the company. So that's one of the things. And our company, $7 billion cruise company, connectivity is at that level that it's that important. I believe we are out of time, but I don't know if there's a question or two. But thank you.
Thank you. I have a really quick question for you, and then we'll go to one in the front. You mentioned O3B particularly, which I think everybody's excited about the bandwidth. I took a cruise years ago, not a Royal cruise, and the service was terrible. It was not a Royal cruise, and so all disclosure aside. It needed improvement. I think that everybody says you need better connectivity on ships, but you said an important point about O3B, which was we're going to use it in some markets like the Caribbean. We're still going to use GEO. The first 2 ships you're using it on are the biggest ones. So obviously the best payback is what's the delta? When you're deciding when to use O3B in the Caribbean, you have 11 ships. Do we envision more coming? Do we envision, what do you envision longer term about the usage of it? And and then of course the issue, is it deck space? Is there a number in terms of generating revenue from the user? Just briefly,
the concern with HTS and O3B, O3B is a MEO HTS, a little different in our opinion. Is you have spot beams, and with O3B we're actually moving those beams around with the ships. And traditionally the large operators aren't really willing, unless to basically move those beams, the HTS beams, around with your capacity, nor do you want it. So we see that the Caribbean is going to be lit up with spot beams in our case with O3B. When we're crossing the Atlantic or in the North European area, other parts of the world we're not going to probably have O3B. But there are a lot of things to be worked out with HTS for cruise ships that move around. If you have an old platform, stationary, in our case, we're not going to buy 100 megahertz in one little beam and then we can't move it anywhere. We need something that we're able to move it around as we need. And we were able to get that solution with O3B where they actually steer the beams for us.
So do you see more ships coming though? Do you envision
absolutely.
that coming
down
we're
going to continue down that path.
The smaller ships, not the 8,000 person, which is a massive feat.
Absolutely.
A massive feat, okay. So yes, Stefan, in the front, yes, thank you, Mark.
Stefan Chanot, Euroconsult. I have a couple of questions on the business model. Is this a profit center for you, or is it part of the cost of being a cruise operator? And in particular, the video alluded to an Xbox gaming room. I'm wondering if the games are live and what opportunities you see for partnerships with gaming companies, content companies, those sorts of guys.
Good question.
Do you want to talk about Xbox?
You mentioned a partnership with
let me
Facebook
talk
also.
about the Xbox first. So on the Quantum, we do have Xbox. I can't go into all the details about that because it hasn't been fully released, but it will be online. And we have been testing that. So there's a lot of cool things that are happening there, not just with Xbox, with a lot of companies. We have this connectivity now. We can do online gaming and other things that you can imagine, ship-to-ship type things. This is definitely a profit center for us. We have, revenue targets for internet performance. There's also cellular data service on the ship. We have the crew with, both voice and internet capacity. And, like I said before, our goal over time is to bring down our blended cost of bandwidth. And to do that, we have to move out of traditional, 2,500 to 3,500 per megahertz cost into something that's blended with cheaper things, so we can continue to see our revenue that we're looking for as we add things.
Okay. Yes, final question, Simon, here in the front.
It's very, very interesting. I've been following Royal Caribbean for some years now.
Thank you.
And what you've been doing, and I was with Bill Martin at the launch, in fact. You chose initially to purchase a beam from O3B and follow your largest ship, and then you expanded it. Have you got to a point where you're beginning to think of taking a cluster of beams, locating them across the Caribbean, just leaving them there and letting different ships roam across those beams? I mean, are you looking at different models like that? That's one question. And as part of that then also, what do you think in your mind, presumably Carnival and others are going to start thinking about coming down the same route as you if they see you get a competitive advantage? You have defense strategy there? Buy up O3B or something like that?
We can always count on Simon for great questions, right? We definitely obviously have thought about that. We have a lot more than just one beam in the Caribbean now. We can share it across ships if we want to. So that's something that may be in the cards. We haven't announced all the things around that, so I can't talk to our exact specifics. But you're on the right street. We have the capacity in that market, and we're going to leverage it as hard as we can. We're going to use every bit of power off that satellite, to make money. Any more on that? Yeah, and from a competitive positioning perspective, we have things in place that help in that as well. We think that we're pretty far ahead of the competition, and there'd be a huge time gap. Let's say that they could go out, do everything we did. The challenge that's out there is that there isn't one group to say, hey, do something for cruise. You have to actually go out to 50 different companies and figure things out. So a lot of the stuff we're doing has never been done before. We had to pay for the engineering. So the Me Too is something that could happen, but we don't see it happening across everything we're doing. And if they try to copy what we have today, we have plans already a couple of years out to evolve these things that are coming together. So there's definitely always going to be that lag, in our opinion.
Just one other thing that I wonder, sorry, Chris. If you've got your big ships and they've got O3B, and obviously it's like fiber to the ship and all that kind of stuff, so you get a guest on there and they're happy as Larry, and then they go off on one of your other ships and they go, oh, what the hell is this? What kind of stuff? How are you going to manage that kind of change in experience from one ship to another for some of those customers? Yeah, have you considered that?
Sure. Yeah, the service is on, at the moment, Quantum class is more than one ship, right? Oasis and Allure, the two largest ships, and if we continue, we have a third ship of that size coming out. Beyond that, into the other ships, we have plans in place to market how we're going to take care of those things. there's definitely, you know, what I'm trying to say is that we're calling these ships, you know, smart ships with great connectivity. We're not saying that every ship is going to have O3B. So if you want to pay a premium price, this is the ship you're going to go on. You're going to have a great experience. If you want to go in traditional cruising, here are your great options, right? So.
All comes down to setting customer expectations, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Indeed, again and again. I find it interesting, an end user speaks and the three analysts in the room are the ones who have the most questions. Excellent presentation, wonderful, thank you. I'm probably going to have some more questions offline. Thank you very much.